Welcome to Teolumen Insights, where we reveal the hidden forces that shape the way you live and show you how to use them to create real transformation and supercharge your health, mindset, and daily life. Here are your hosts, Emma Greenwood and Nathan Sinclair.
Believe it or not, what follows is an AI-generated conversation, one designed not to mimic humanity, but to illuminate it.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really profound plunge. We're digging into some challenging insights inspired by the work of Jiddu Krishnamurti.
Yeah, and our mission, if you want to call it that, is to go beyond just, scratching the surface. We want to really grapple with what it means to be human, confront some truths that are, frankly, pretty uncomfortable.
Totally. Think of it as an invitation to look squarely at those raw, maybe even gut-punching realities we spend so much energy avoiding.
Exactly. So forget what you think you know about God or your soul or creativity or even just that constant chatter inside your head. We're basically starting an investigation here. And, well, you're coming along for the ride. And what does freedom from conflict, real freedom, actually demand from us?
Right. So buckle up. This is probably going to get pretty intense. We're starting with what feels like the oldest question ever, but it's still so complex. Does God exist?
Yeah, that simple, impossible question. Yes or no? And if yes, how do you realize him or it or whatever in this life? It's loaded because for millennia, think about it. Ancient Sumerians carving gods, the Greeks with their whole messy pantheon.
Well, the way to us, yeah, we've constructed this idea of God.
And it's fascinating to trace that lineage, isn't it? This pervasive image we have. God is omnipotent, omniscient, eternal, merciful, just, all good. That's the picture society, for the most part, has painted.
And this is a huge but. When you look at some of the really ancient texts, like, say, the Upanishads, It's not even clear they mention God in that way. Not this personified, powerful dude.
Right. Which makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could this God we all sort of carry around in our heads be a later invention, something we cooked up?
Yeah. And that slams you right into the core paradox. The thing that just makes my brain itch. If this all-powerful, all-good, perfect God made us in his image, then why the hell are we not omniscient, generous, loving, joyful, eternal? Why are we so often, let's be brutally honest, kind of terrible human beings?
Yeah. If God's the perfect original and we're the reflection, then something's seriously wrong with the mirror, isn't it? Or the image got totally warped.
It forces this stark choice on you, really, a really uncomfortable one. Either we, humanity, you, me, everyone created God, or God created us.
And when you really, really look at it, when you strip away the comfort blanket of just believing what you've been told, the evidence, the logic, it points pretty strongly towards the former, doesn't it? That we made God.
The irony is just, it's brutal. It's almost tragic. Think about it. Our own thought, our desperate need for answers, for security, for meaning, it creates the concept of God.
Like, how many gods are there? You mentioned India, something like 300,000. And local gods popping up everywhere. Ancient Rome, some tiny village shrine today, Tirupati.
Exactly. Thought spins up these elaborate divine figures.
Right.
And then, and this is the kicker, thought turns right around and worships its own creation.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like writing fan fiction and then starting a religion based on your main character. Primal fear.
Deep, visceral fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of death, that sheer existential dread of being alone in a universe that feels chaotic and random.
So we crave safety, security, the comforting idea that, somebody's looking after you like a cosmic parent.
So out of that fear, we sculpt this divine figure. And because we give it so much power in our minds, we end up worshiping it.
Versus the act of loving itself. Just loving.
And this is where it gets electric, I think. The idea that if you love truly, deeply, unconditionally, that very love is God, that love is sacred.
Boom. It just obliterates the need to go outside to look for God. The whole exhausting spiritual scavenger hunt just dissolves.
Yeah, it flips the script completely. It demands you find the sacred right here in the act of living and the quality of your connection, your love.
Which naturally leads to rejecting belief in any man-made God, doesn't it?
It does. and the focus shifts. It shifts to something else entirely, something profound. Eternity.
But not eternity like forever and ever, amen time.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
To be outside of time altogether, a state of being.
And you don't get there through belief or ritual. It demands something huge.
A mind and heart completely free from all the burdens of life, free from vanity, arrogance, selfishness, all that psychological baggage we haul around.
And that's where we hit the wall, right? Because immediately the mind goes, whoa, I can't do that. Tell me how. Give me the steps.
Always looking for the instruction manual.
And bam, you're right back in the dependency cycle, desperate for a leader, a guru, someone to tell you the way.
And the insight here is almost brutal in its directness.
Right.
It's like someone saying, look, mate, you're in a jungle. You have to walk through it by yourself.
Oh,
It demands vitality, vigor, inner strength, not belief. Belief is like carrying a heavy, useless map in that jungle.
because the fundamental principle, the one that shatters so many comforting illusions, is just this. Belief has no place where truth is concerned.
If you're genuinely seeking what's true, belief isn't just unhelpful, it's an obstacle, a blindfold. So following logically from that, we have to confront another really deeply ingrained belief, this idea of an inner core, a conscience, a soul, the light of God within, something permanent inside us that isn't part of the messy world or just thought.
Oh yeah, the ultimate internal security blanket. It's super comforting, isn't it? To think there's this little untouched spark of divinity inside, no matter how messed up things get outside.
Extremely comforting. But then comes the zinger, the really provocative question. Is that belief or is it a fact?
And the moment you even gently poke that belief, well boy, people get defensive. They resist. They don't want to look.
It's like, don't you dare question my inner diamond, even if it's just, a projection of my own desperate need for something solid.
Exactly. And what good is that belief anyway? What actual value does believing in Atman or a soul have if your day-to-day reality is misery? If you're miserable, confused, lonely, anxious, in agony, does believing in an inner light actually do anything about that suffering?
It becomes practically irrelevant, doesn't it? Just a nice idea floating above the harsh reality of your actual experience.
It's like being stranded in a desert, dying of thirst, clutching an empty canteen, but insisting, oh, I have an inner oasis. I just, can't find it right now.
Yeah, exactly. The prerequisite, the absolute necessity before you can even begin to find out if such a core exists, is to be free from all that, free from the misery, the confusion, the anxiety.
To just suppose it exists without doing that hard, messy work of clearing out the psychological clutter. It's so childish, as the source material puts it. It's wishful thinking.
Like saying, I believe there's gold buried in my garden. Great, have you dug for it? No. But I believe. What use is that?
And this connects directly to another massive human tendency, following leaders.
Oh, yeah. Religious leaders, spiritual gurus, political figures. We seem hardwired to want someone to follow.
You see it everywhere. Historically, figures like Ramana Maharshi, Ramakrishna, and countless gurus and self-help experts today.
The core question, though, the one we really need to ask ourselves is, why do you follow it all?
And this is where my inner cynic just goes wild. What actual real value does their life, however enlightened or simple or whatever, have for you?
Right. It's the ultimate spiritual laziness, really, often disguised as devotion or humility.
Totally. The call here is for something much more demanding. Radical self-responsibility.
If you realize, truly realize in your heart, not just intellectually, that you are responsible entirely for yourself,
then, and only then, do you become a human being free to walk straight.
It's terrifyingly simple, isn't it? Because it means no excuses, no one else to blame, no savior coming.
You're back in that jungle, alone, no map, no guide, just your own strength, your own vitality.
It's freedom, absolutely. But it's a demanding, uncomfortable, maybe even scary kind of freedom.
Okay, let's pivot. Let's talk about something that's, exploded globally. Yoga, often presented as this pathway to inner peace, enlightenment, maybe even, cosmic fireworks.
Kundalini awakening, the big one.
Right. The question we need to tackle is, Does the modern yoga you see everywhere, the studios in London, LA, Berlin, does it actually lead to spiritual awakening?
Because let's be honest, that's the promise, isn't it? That's what people are often shelling out big bucks for, that transcendent hit.
But there's a fascinating historical wrinkle here.
A big one. What we commonly call yoga in the West, and even a lot of places in India now, it was largely invented around the 17th and 18th century. Well, maybe not quite so bluntly, but there's a disconnect. It feels like trying to reach nirvana by perfecting your push-ups.
Because the real yoga, the ancient stuff, Raja Yoga, the king of ethics, that's something else entirely, isn't it?
Completely different focus. It's defined as cultivating a highly moral life.
And not moral, like follow these arbitrary rules.
No, true ethical activity. Not hurting others, avoiding intoxicants, right sleep, right food, clear thinking. Basically, doing the right thing from a place of deep inner order.
And crucially, these ancient practices apparently never mentioned about exercise in the way we think of it.
Their emphasis was squarely on morality, ethics, and an active, clear mind. A mind in order.
So the whole modern interpretation, the word yoga itself meaning to join the higher and lower,
Yeah.
it's been, well, twisted.
You could say that. The critique in the material is blunt.
Mm.
It's nonsense in terms of leading to higher states. It should just be called exercise.
But that wouldn't appeal to you. You wouldn't pay a fortune for just exercise, would you?
Exactly. You have to pay to learn yoga, to breathe properly, wrap it all in spiritual mystique.
There's this funny anecdote mentioned about someone learning these exercises from experts.
Right, who didn't charge him because they thought he was the expert.
Oh, the irony. And they probably vanished when they realized he wasn't selling the snake oil.
But the hard truth, the one people don't want to hear, is that you can do these exercises for the rest of your life. You won't awaken spiritual insight, nor will the awakening of a higher energy come into being. It just won't happen through physical postures alone.
And all this chatter about Kundalini, East and West.
Often just people always quoting somebody else back to the original mischief maker, who probably also just heard it from someone else. It's like a game of spiritual telephone.
Perpetuating a belief without any direct experience.
And candidly, very few, if any, have genuinely awakened this energy they talk about. They might have intense experiences, sure.
But often it's just, as it's put, a certain form of increasing energy to do more mischief.
Or it leads to this feeling of superiority, doesn't it? I've awakened my Kundalini, I'm special, which is the total opposite of real insight.
So if physical yoga isn't the key, what is this different form of energy they hint at? So when that struggle ceases, when the self is absent, even momentarily,
then there's a totally different kind of energy taking place. An energy that keeps the mind fresh, young, alive.
and it's not something you generate through effort, like lifting weights.
No, it's a natural consequence of the conflict stopping. A byproduct of inner quietness, inner silence.
It reminds me of that amazing parable, the master and the disciple one.
Oh, the stones. Yeah, brilliant.
The disciple is trying so hard, right? Sitting perfectly, breathing deeply, trying to capture the higher webs or whatever.
Focusing intensely.
And the master just picks up two stones and starts grinding them together, making this awful noise.
Completely disrupting the disciple's sacred practice.
The disciple finally snaps, "Master, what on earth are you doing?" And the master says, "I'm trying to make a mirror out of these stones so I can see myself."
And the punchline. The disciple says, "But master, you can never do that."
And the master just looks at him and says, "In the same way, my friend, you can sit like that and breathe like that forever, but you will never."
It's such a direct hit against technique without transformation. Rubbing those stones won't make a mirror. Sitting like that won't bring enlightenment if the inner conflict remains. So we've looked at God, gurus, yoga, and lurking beneath so much of it, the driving force seems to be fear.
God, yeah. Fear. We have so many, don't we? It's almost overwhelming when you list them.
Fear of the dark, fear of living, fear of what people think, fear of our neighbors, our partners.
Fear of insecurity, especially economic. Fear of losing the little security we think we have. The list is endless.
It really is. And the baffling thing is, why haven't we solved this?
Right. We've poured incredible brain power into preparing for war, building weapons, complex systems.
We can plan intricate military campaigns, build submarines. We solve these huge technical problems.
So why can't we solve this fundamental, deeply human problem of fear?
We have psychologists, therapists. They explain the causes, sometimes brilliantly, but often the explanations feel merely verbal.
And maybe, just maybe, they're probably as scared as you are underneath it all.
So it's not just about understanding fear intellectually, it's about ending it. Can fear actually end?
Which demands way more than just thinking about it. It needs intense emotional and intellectual focus. No escaping, no rationalizing.
Because when fear hits, you know it. It's physical. How it throbs, how your physical organism shrinks, how your brain becomes addled, almost paralyzed.
It messes with your sleep, breeds suspicion, anxiety, depression, makes you cling desperately to things, hoping for stability that never comes.
And our usual approach, it's like dealing with a weed. We just trim the branches of fear.
We deal with the symptoms. Oh, I'm scared of flying. I'll avoid planes. I'm scared of being alone. I'll fill every second with noise and people.
But fear is like this huge, deep-rooted tree, many branches, many leaves, many expressions. Trimming is pointless. It just grows back.
So the real mission, the courageous one, is to find the root, the actual source of fear. So all those branches just wither away naturally.
So what is the root? We have to look directly right now without relying on someone else's answer. Because the word fear isn't fear.
We need our own direct insight here. So the question becomes, is thought the cause? And is time involved?
Let's examine that. Is thought the root? Think about it.
You're here now, present moment. Then thought jumps in. I might die tomorrow. I might lose my job. My partner might leave me.
Or even that nagging desire, I want to be known, I want to be famous, followed immediately by the fear of not achieving it.
Thought is constantly projecting potential future loss, future pain, future uncertainty.
Or dredging up past hurts and projecting them forward.
So that very act of thinking, projecting, remembering, imagining, it seems fundamental to creating fear, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And tied into that, inextricably, is loneliness.
Oh, God, loneliness, that deep, frightening emptiness. You can feel it even in a crowded room sometimes.
And that feeling drives desperate attachment, doesn't it? Clinging, holding on to something, however illusory, however false, however meaningless.
Your spouse, your job, your club, your God, your rituals, your friends, anything to avoid that void.
But why? Why are we so frightened of loneliness? Why do we pile on all this external decoration and distraction?
Because if you strip it all away, you're left with just that. Raw loneliness.
And where does it actually stem from? The insight here is that it comes from self-centeredness.
From narrowing the vast, extraordinary existence of life into a small little me. Always me, mine, my problems, my desires.
That constant inward focus isolates you. It cuts you off.
So the only way to change it radically is to face it, to be with it completely, not move away from it. Don't run, look.
And that links straight back to time, doesn't it? We fear what might happen tomorrow. We fear consequences from something we did yesterday.
A past action, a secret maybe, that could come back to haunt us.
So the core insight hits like a ton of bricks. Time and thought are the root of fear. Time and thought.
And crucially, there is no division between thought and time. Thought is time.
Whoa. Okay, thought is time. That's huge.
My memories are thought. My projections into the future are thought. It's all the movement of thought, which is the movement of time, psychologically speaking.
But here's the paradox, right? Because thought and time are absolutely essential for practical living.
Totally. You need thought to drive a car, plan a project, cook dinner, get from A to B. It's rational, functional.
So the million-dollar question, is thought and time necessary psychologically, inwardly?
And the answer seems to be a resounding no. In fact, it's the source of the trouble.
As long as time and thought are necessary in the psychological world, in the world of the self, then you will be perpetually in fear. That's the crux.
So if you perceive that, if you really see it, then you can differentiate. Thought and time for practical stuff, yes, accepted.
But inwardly, psychologically, not necessary. Actually harmful. It's the breeding ground of fear.
Which implies your brain needs to be incredibly vigilant. actively watching itself every minute.
Like a security guard for your psyche, making sure thought and time do not enter into its psychological realm where they don't belong. We have searched, asked, read, wandered the earth to find out.
Yeah, we consume information constantly. Gurus, books, podcasts.
But we never ask of ourselves, we never demand of ourselves serious, deep questions.
We keep it shallow, don't we? And we make our lives very superficial by always looking outside for answers.
But if you start asking those demanding questions of yourself, exercising your brain, your feelings, your full attention.
Then you begin to discover for yourself without being told by anybody.
And the payoff. When there is genuine freedom from fear, not managed fear, but actual freedom. You don't need gods, you don't need gurus, you don't want anything from anybody. You are finally really a free man, a free human being.
That's the extraordinary challenge and the extraordinary possibility.
Okay, moving into another area that, let's face it, consumes a huge amount of human energy and attention. Sex.
Yes. The big S. The question posed is pretty direct. Why does sex play such an important part in each one's life in the world? Beyond just making babies, obviously.
I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it? It went from being this huge taboo hidden away
To being plastered on every billboard, used to sell everything imaginable. It's almost comical.
sex at any time, at any place.
Yeah.
But be careful what you eat. Haha. It's a perfect summary of our messed up priorities.
So why? Why have we made this one thing so colossally important?
Well, the most obvious answer suggested is probably the most common experience. It is probably the greatest pleasure a human being has.
And in chasing that pleasure, demanding it, needing it, all sorts of trouble starts. Conflict, dependence, jealousy. Are they truly creative in the deepest sense, or is it something else?
It really challenges our assumptions. Is Picasso, with his fragmented faces, being creative, or is he just expressing a unique talent that brings have name, money, position?
Is it just supplying the market, giving people a novel thrill, or fulfilling a trend?
The implication is that true creativity is radically different. It's a state completely where there is no shadow of selfishness.
Whoa! No selfishness. It does not need expression, meaning it doesn't have to result in a painting or a symphony to be real.
And it doesn't need fulfillment from praise or recognition. It simply is creation, a state of being.
That's a massive blow to the ego of anyone who considers themselves a creator, isn't it?
It really is. It suggests that if there's any seeking of reward, fame, money, self-importance, it's not true creation. It's just skilled ego expression.
Or commerce.
So connecting back, the huge importance we place on sex might start to make a different kind of sense if it's viewed through the lens of our desperate, often unconscious, search for freedom.
Because our lives often feel so constrained, so circumscribed, right?
Yeah.
The same job for decades, the same church, following the same ideologies or gurus.
All these structures, internal and external, have deprived us of freedom. Even our own knowledge, our past traps us. It's not free.
So we feel cornered, stifled, deprived of freedom outwardly and inwardly. For generations, we have been told what to do, what to think, how to feel.
And even our rebellion, our I'll do what I want, is still limited, isn't it?
Yeah.
Limited by pleasure, desire, our own capacities. It's just another reaction. So where do we look for that feeling of release, of uninhibited freedom?
And so sex, we think subconsciously perhaps, maybe there is freedom there in that abandon, that intensity.
But even sex becomes circumscribed. He gets caught in patterns, expectations, the pursuit of pleasure, the fear of not getting it. Life is whole, not just one part.
You distort everything, like the example of monks denying sex, trying to force that energy towards God.
But it's still boiling in them. You can't just suppress nature violently without consequences. It finds other outlets, often distorted ones.
Giving one thing all importance, then you are corrupt. It's a powerful indictment of how fragmented and unbalanced our lives become in this desperate, misguided search for freedom.
We've talked a lot about relationships, the past, the need for freedom, which brings us to the necessity of change, real change.
A radical revolution within oneself. Because physical revolutions changing governments or systems, they don't work long term if people remain inwardly corrupt, conflicted, greedy.
We just recreate the same old problems in new structures. So the real transformation has to be internal. Absolutely essential that man change.
And the burning question is, how does that change happen? Is it gradual, bit by bit, over time, through effort?
Or does it happen only in the instant?
Yeah.
In a flash of insight, a moment of total seeing?
The focus here is definitely on the latter. Instantaneous, passionate, deep change, not just tinkering around the edges.
And the key idea is that the content of consciousness is consciousness. What you contain is who you are, psychologically.
There's no separation between the container and the contents.
Right. And changing that content, all of it, the stuff you see and the hidden stuff, it doesn't depend on slow, painstaking analysis or the passage of time or external pressure. It happens totally independent of any pressure, of any strain, of any compulsion.
Wow, that's a huge ask. It requires a great deal of passion, a great energy.
Most of us waste our energy fighting ourselves.
Yeah.
The conflict between what is and what should be.
But to really look without distortion takes immense energy, and energy comes with the possibility of change.
If you secretly believe change is impossible, your energy just drains away.
Because analysis takes time, doesn't it? It's a gradual peeling off layer after layer. You dissect, interpret, theorize.
And if that analysis isn't perfect, complete, true, which, let's be real, how could it be? We're always biased by the analyzer.
Then you're left with incomplete knowledge, which just leads to more confusion, more conflict, and ultimately inaction. You're stuck thinking, not acting, not changing.
It's a hamster wheel, a never-ending process that keeps you trapped in the past, examining it endlessly.
Plus, analysis always sets up this duality, right? The analyzer and the analyzed.
Exactly. Whether it's a therapist or you analyzing yourself, there's this separation. The analyzer thinks they're objective, outside the thing being looked at.
But the analyzer is the past. All the accumulated knowledge, memories, biases, theories, that's the analyzer.
And that past bundle of knowledge then tries to dissect the present, which inevitably creates conflict, trying to fit the present into the boxes of the past.
And don't even get me started on dreams. We're told they're super important, full of hidden messages, mostly because professionals have said so.
Right. But what if dreams are just the continuation of our daily life?
All the unresolved crap from the day, the mischief, the corruption, the hatred, the passing pleasures, the ambitions, the guilt, just carrying on in symbolic form while you sleep.
And then we waste more time and energy trying to interpret these symbols, adding another layer of complexity and unreality.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
The truly radical question then becomes, why dream at all? Is it possible for the mind to be truly, completely quiet during sleep, to genuinely renew itself, empty out the day's residue, become fresh, young, decisive?
Because if dreams are just the brain trying to process the day's disorder.
Exactly. The brain needs order. It functions perfectly only in order. If our waking life is chaotic and conflicted, the brain tries to sort it out during sleep, hence the messy dreams.
So the answer isn't dream dictionaries or therapy for your dreams.
No, it's to be totally aware during the day, watching your thoughts, motives, speech, actions constantly. So you bring order every minute during the day by being aware, outwardly and inwardly, seeing the mess, the cruelty, your own reactions. But here's the key: without correcting it, without jumping in based on your past ideas of how things should be.
Just merely observe actually what is, because counterintuitively, perhaps, what is order. The attempt to change what is based on the past, that's what creates disorder.
If you live with that kind of moment-to-moment, non-judgmental awareness all day, then when you sleep, the brain doesn't have all that undigested conflict to deal with. Your brain cells become totally quiet.
Sleep becomes truly restorative. You wake up seeing things exactly as they are, fresh.
So analysis, it actually prevents action. It's not the way. We end up being secondhand or third-hand human beings regurgitating theories.
We have to find out for ourselves.
Yeah.
Through direct, unmediated observation.
Which leads to the ultimate challenge. How is one to observe the total content of consciousness without the analyzer?
Because we are so deeply conditioned to see a separation. There's me, the observer, and that thing, the observed, the tree, the anger, the partner.
But the mind-bending insight is the observer is the observed. The observer is the anger. The observer is the greed.
But our conditioning fights that tooth and nail. It insists on separation.
Think about looking at your partner. You're usually looking through the image which you have of her or him.
All the accumulated memories, judgments, pleasures, pains. That image is the observer.
And that observer is the past. It is time, psychologically.
Yeah.
And that creates the space between the observer and the observed. That space is time and conflict.
So the really radical, almost terrifying question is, can you look without the observer?
Can you see the tree without the label tree and all your past associations? Can you see your partner without the filter of the image?
This requires tremendous discipline, but again, not discipline as conformity or suppression.
Discipline as learning. The disciple who is learning constantly from direct experience, that learning creates its own natural order.
Or consider listening to noise, like traffic. If you listen completely, not with resistance, it doesn't bother you in the same way.
Resistance, me separate from the noise I don't like, creates the conflict.
But listening without any resistance whatsoever makes your hearing more acute, more sensitive. The listening itself becomes more important than the noise.
And this clarifies the fundamental principle. Where there is an observer separating himself from the thing he observes, there must be conflict. Always.
Muslim, Hindu, Catholic, Protestant, black, white, husband, wife, me versus my anger. Separation equals conflict.
But the breakthrough, the magic moment, is when the observer is the observed.
When you realize, not just intellectually, but viscerally, I am anger. Not, I feel angry and I, the observer, need to control it.
When me is jealousy, before you thought you could do something about it. Fight it, suppress it, analyze it.
But when the observer is the observed, when you are the jealousy, the conflict just stops. The element of conflict comes to an end.
Because jealousy is conflict. Anger is conflict. The division was the conflict. No division, no conflict, it dissolves.
What about thought itself then? The engine driving all this?
Same principle. The thinker is the thought. We worship the thinker, the intellect.
Yeah.
But it's just thought creating a division.
Thought fragments itself. Thinker thought, higher self, flower self, Atman soul. It's all still thought in operation, creating illusions of separation. So thought is never free, is it? It's always rooted in the past. It is always old.
And thought organizes life based on that past, projecting it onto the future, which inevitably leads to conflict. Because life is always new, never exactly like the past.
And consider pleasure again. Thought latches on to pleasant experiences, a sunset, sex, a compliment. It records it, thinks about it.
Gives vitality to an incident that is over,
Yeah.
making you want to repeat it, fueling desire.
But the dark side, where there is pleasure and the pursuit of pleasure, there is also the nourishing of fear, the fear of losing the pleasure or the fear of repeating pain. Thinking about past pain sustains the fear.
So thought is doing both. Thought sustains and gives nourishment to pleasure as well as to fear.
It's rational for practical things, but totally irrational when it sustains as pleasure or fear, creating this endless cycle.
And even though thought knows pleasure brings pain and fear, it says, I cannot let go of my pleasures. It's trapped by its own mechanism.
So the ultimate demand, the passionate inquiry has to be, can I live a life inwardly and outwardly in which there is no conflict whatsoever?
If that's a real demand, a deep, passionate yearning, not just a casual wish, then the possibility opens up.
Because conflict only exists where there is division. But not me, use them, observer, observe.
When you actually realize, see directly that there is no division between the observer and the observed, between the thinker and the thought, then you simply see, observe actually what is, the raw fact without the filter of division.
And in that seeing, that direct perception of what is, you've already gone beyond it. You don't get stuck arguing with reality because the you arguing is the reality you're arguing with.
Separation dissolves and the conflict dissolves with it. This happens only when the observer is no longer separate.
Our lives are so fragmented, aren't they? Scientist, artist, businessman, housewife, all these little boxes.
And the root of that fragmentation is the observer-observed split. The me and the not me. The me who wants to be better, superior, more, and the you who is different.
As long as that separate observer, experiencer, thinker exists, there must be division.
But when the observer is the observed, conflict ends. Jealousy ends because jealousy is conflict.
As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What you think, you are. The challenge is to see if thought can function rationally where needed without spilling over into the psychological realm and creating all this irrational conflict, especially compared to some of the more ridiculous meditation techniques out there, like transcendental meditation, TM.
Yeah, which has kind of ruined the word transcendental. People learn techniques to relax, observe thoughts, reaction.
But the absolutely crucial question, the one that cuts through all the hype, is what is the motive?
Why are all those people sitting quietly? What are they actually trying to get out of it?
Because the motives are usually there, even if hidden. Desire for cool parapsychological experiences, maybe.
Or just wanting some illusory peace, an escape from the noise? Or seeking understanding, enlightenment, power, some kind of psychological reward?
And we, the often gullible seekers, happily pay thousands of dollars or francs or pounds for instructions for a secret mantra.
Usually a Sanskrit word.
Yeah.
Much more romantic than saying Coca-Cola.
You pay money expecting something back. It's a transaction.
But if you're doing it with that motive, seeking a reward, a psychological payoff, then that quiet sitting, however disciplined it looks, isn't worth it.
In fact, it often leads to more problems. Illusory psychological troubles, making people gradually unbalanced, even slightly neurotic, chasing shadows.
Awareness.
But our minds are usually going a mile a minute, right? Always pursuing one thought or another, always chattering, consciously or unconsciously.
And the standard approach is to try and stop that chattering through concentration. Force the mind to be quiet.
Which just creates more conflict. It's like wrestling with yourself.
The natural state of quietness isn't forced. It arises when you look at someone, listen to music, or listen to speech quietly, without resistance, without that inner commentary. I must change this. I don't like that. This is good. That's bad.
So practicing systems to force quietness, it's counterproductive. The mind will never be quiet in the true sense.
It just becomes mechanical, set in a pattern, dull, insensitive. It's childish, really, to think profundity comes from repetition.
So what's the alternative? How do you find this real quietness?
It comes back to listening. Listening deeply.
Listen quietly, not saying he is right or wrong, but to listen to what is being said without resistance.
Because if you can truly listen to what is being pointed out, which is ultimately your own discovery of what you are doing, then your mind, in the very process of investigation, it becomes quiet.
It's not actually difficult if you're genuinely interested in something. If the curiosity is real, the attention follows naturally.
So the path isn't some mystical technique. It's begin at the most rational level, for God's sakes. Then you can go very far.
Start with honest, unmotivated inquiry, not manufactured stillness or chasing psychological rewards.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground. We've walked through this startling idea that the gods we worship, the souls we think we have, the conflicts we constantly battle, even our deepest desires for pleasure, are all profoundly tangled up with the workings of our own thought and this core illusion of a separate self.
And the absolute linchpin, the insight that changes everything if you really grasp it, is that the observer is the observed. When that division collapses, conflict just evaporates. It has nowhere to stand.
So for you listening right now, maybe wrestling with some of this as a final thought to chew on, a provocation. What if the deepest spiritual journey isn't about gaining something new, not about achieving a higher state, getting enlightened, or following some guru's map?
What if it's actually about stripping away, removing everything that isn't actually you, every layer of belief, illusion, conditioning, every comforting lie?
What if the most radical, maybe the most terrifying, but also the most liberating act you can possibly undertake is to simply observe without judging, without analyzing, without that constant chattering motive? Just observe the raw, unfolding truth of your own mind right now as it is.
And if that is the case, what does it actually mean to step back out into your life right now, today, with that profound, maybe uncomfortable, but ultimately freeing awareness? Go on, wrestle with that one.